Well, happy Thursday to you, everybody. Great to have you with us. This is the usual 9 a.m. Eastern Time edition of Elevating You. This is officially now number seven for Mike and I. But once again, as you can see here, because I know that you're very keyed into this, you can see there's 3 boxes. That means it's not just Mike and I, as we have once again brought in Jill Bauer to the conversation. And I want to say hi and welcome everybody. Kraig Kann, Mike Mooney, Jill Bauer. Great to be with you. And I will start, because I thought about this. I will start today, and I assume that people paid attention last week, but I'm going to start today with another reason to explain some good things going on at Kann Advisory Group, and with these two, and with Jill specifically, because this really cool graphic from our crack graphics team at Kann Advisory only has 2 of us in it. But the good news is that we've added Mike and Jill to our very incredible roster of advisors. Mike will be working with teams and me on brand strategy for corporations, and Jill jumps on board from Just Jill Creative to talk about sales strategy. And a little bit later, we'll actually share once again some of the things that we're going to be doing and that we're already engaging with companies and organizations about to help them help themselves get better. So I just wanted to be able to share that and say good morning and welcome to you guys. Great to have you with us. Jill, I'll let you say hello first, because I know you got a bunch of people that are watching, and it's really good to have you back with us here on a Thursday.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to, sort of share. We're going to be talking about finding passion within your job today. And so with that, I'm going to be talking about how I created Your Home with Jill, which was a show that I hosted on QVC for 19 years. It was the longest running show on QVC with the same host. And I realized this is kind of crazy, but here's a little trivia. Do you know that I was actually on air longer with that show than Lawrence Welk?
What?
Really?
You beat out the Welk?
So there you have it.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm excited to share that story because, Your Home with Jill really defined my brand and was the sort of incubator for what I'm doing now. And but it was a journey, and it was really born out of necessity for myself. So we'll be talking about that. But good morning to everybody, whether you're here from my page or you're here because you're regulars with Mike and Kraig. Thanks for welcoming me in, and I'm excited to be here.
No, we're glad. And if this was, just Craig's home or just home with Kraig, and you saw what was behind me right now or off to my right, people would be like, nice place. I'm in the middle of a move, so this place is a disaster. But it looks halfway decent behind me. All right, Mike, good morning. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm doing wonderful. Good to see you, Jill. As always, a pleasure. Thank you. We all have our coffee. We're ready to go. But yeah, excited about this conversation today about passion and meaning in work. I think that as we reflected on these conversations we've had, and we think about our own journeys, to Jill's point, that sometimes it's about what we're building towards. Sometimes it's about what we're building within. So I'm looking forward to talking, having that conversation with all of us today and finding those places. As I've been working now with people and with doing virtual events, keynotes and coaching around this idea of the power of reputation, our own reputation and our brands, and how those, especially in times of uncertainty, can really be accelerators for us, can really blow open doors of opportunity for us if we would be intentional with those things. So, this is, again, a great cast of characters here. And I love the conversation because I take away so much from all of these as well. I learn a ton every time.
Yeah, we've gotten some really good feedback, and so I'm excited about that. Now, as we always do, and Jill, you're going to probably really start getting comfortable with our little rundown, okay? We have a rundown. We don't have a show meeting, but we have a rundown, and we always kind of go where we left off last time. And the topic last time was what your resume says, building a recession-proof portfolio. And this was really important for us because of so many people that are trying to figure it out right now. And the bottom line is they feel a little bit concerned, a little bit stuck, a little bit nervous. They don't know whether their job is going to be there for them. If they're furloughed, they don't know if their company, frankly, is going to be there for them or anybody. Are they going to make it? These are This is, if I had a dollar for every time I've heard this, my buddy and I talk about this all the time, unprecedented times. If I had a dollar for every time I've heard the word unprecedented over the last 4 months, I don't know what I'd be able to purchase. But at any rate, we always take questions from our audience, and we'll share how you can do that here in a few minutes. But I've got the questions from last week. There are actually two that I thought stood out. So I'm gonna read those to you right now. The first one we'll tackle is from Macy in Colorado, who said, is my resume good enough, or should I send something else? Like, is my resume good enough to kickstart the conversation, or should I send something else? I thought that was interesting, because what it tells me is that Macy might have had a little doubt about her resume in the first place. You know, does it have the right things there? So Mike, I'm going to let you, kind of give her some advice based on what you think here.
Yeah, I would say first off that this is all about storytelling and standing out. And your resume, as we talked about last week, is about telling your story, quantifying the work, showing the impact you've made while you were in the seat that you're currently occupying and what you want to be doing. The other part of it is to stand out. And I'll tell you a story. That when I started in my career and I was trying to get into motorsports public relations, there was an agency that I was working for, and I happened to do some research on the owner of the agency, and I found out, it was a very bizarre thing, but I found out in the reading, and again, this is before Google, so I think we have it a little bit, we have more resources today. But I found out that this gentleman who owned the agency collected air sickness bags. I don't know why, but he had a collection from all of his flights. He would take the air sickness baggie, from the seat pocket and collected them from different airlines. So I went ahead and put my resume inside an air sickness bag and sent that in that way, as just a little way to maybe stand out, and got a call back immediately and a good laugh about, oh my gosh, how did you find this out? So my point is maybe it's not appropriate to send an air sickness bag, but I think the point is, if you can find something.
There's so many things I could say right now about this, but I'm just not going there.
Thank you.
My resume may have made him sick. I don't know. Maybe it was a precautionary.
That was one of them. Yes. Go ahead.
Right. Maybe I'm just being proactive, just in case, sir, this does not meet your standards. Here is a bag for you. But I think the point is, if you can find a way that's relevant, that has meaning, to stand out to somebody along with the resume, or as a follow-up, or some way to get that connection, I would suggest you do it. But again, make sure that it's relevant and make sure that it really has meaning behind it.
Okay. Jill, I'm going to let you jump on this one here. This one kind of goes to what Mike was just talking about. Garrett in Texas says, what can I do to make sure my resume even gets noticed? I mean, so Mike just shared what he did, and but I think that's interesting as well. And again, I think it speaks to some nervousness about people and feeling a sense of, man, there's a lot of competition out there. How do I stand out? How do I get noticed? What do I do? So Garrett from Texas, what can I do to make sure my resume even gets noticed?
Well, I mean, I think a couple of things. I think, first and foremost, things have changed so much in the way we apply for jobs and the way we contact people, that I think you can also step outside of the box a little bit in the way that you present your resume. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just the old standard, here is this, here is this, here is this. What can you do on that resume itself to make it stand out? Maybe it's the template that you're using that repositions things, that still gives all of the important content, but has a little bit different look to it, so that just in alone, that's going to look different when somebody looks at it. And I am a huge believer in follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. You cannot do it enough. You have to follow up as soon as that resume is sent, just letting you know that, I've sent it your way. I look forward to continuing the conversation. A few days later.
People, you don't think that you'd be over the top and pressuring them or being the annoying person?
Isn't the point here, you do it in a way that's respectful. You do it in a way that's not desperate. But I think that you have to be the one that's following up. And I think it's so important in this day and age, because people are not picking up. We talked about this last time. People are not picking up the phone as much, right? So be the person that picks up the phone and says, hey, I just want to make sure that you received my resume, or, it's been a week, just following up, wanting to see where things stand. It can't hurt. I look at it and say, it can't hurt. And I think for the person who's willing to go and pick up that phone and make that phone call, to me, as somebody who would be hiring, that shows me that they're willing to go above and beyond, that their life is not just let me whip off a quick email, but they're really willing to engage in a conversation with me, and they're willing to take that extra step to learn more about this job.
All right, I'm going to add something to this conversation real quick. Number one, I feel like resumes, for the most part, at least in the traditional manner that we're all accustomed to, they're just a bunch of words. Now, you're going to try to use certain buzzwords. You're going to try to make yourself look like you've accomplished all these different things, and you're going to say you're an expert in this, and you're this type of a person as well. But I think we all know, based upon social media, that words are not what get people to stop if they're scrolling down. You need images and video. Now, I'm not suggesting you shoot them in YouTube video of yourself in your resume. But that said, we're also a very visual society. And I think it's a good thing to have a couple of images of you in a professional manner to give them an idea of what you look like. And the other thing too is that we go this line, this line, this line, this line, and all the experience, but nowhere in there do people really focus on the idea of storytelling. And Mike already shared one with us, but there's got to be one highlight, one thing that you've done in your career that might separate you from somebody else. Maybe it's the way you tackled an issue. Maybe if you really want to be vulnerable, it's something that you made a mistake on, learned from, and were able to mentor other people within your organization. So I'm just suggesting that in the body of a resume, a normal, piece of paper, that if you use this much space to say my greatest accomplishment story, my this story, my whatever, and you actually write a little creative writing can go a long way, because nobody else is going to do that. I've seen thousands of resumes in my prior job as an executive in sports, and I never saw that. I did have people send me a portfolio. So back to Macy's question, is the resume good enough to kickstart the conversation? I don't know. Maybe you do want to send something else that gives people a look-see at you. But if you can share something, a little bit of storytelling, in my opinion, can go a long way. Mike, it seemed like you wanted to add something real quick before we move on to this week.
I do, because Jill's point about the follow-up sparked the thought, and I'm curious about your take on this. Is so then at what point we talked the last time about engaging your network, right? To find connection points to actually get access. Is there a point in the follow-up where you can continue to engage your circle, the people who know, trust, and like you, that have a connection inside, to then maybe advocate for you? Hey, just want to let you know, I sent my resume in. It'd be great if could you lob a note over to so-and-so to let them know, or maybe just keep an eye out for it. Do you think that has value? I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
Jill, you want to take that? I would say yes.
Well, I mean, I would say yes, 100%. I mean, I think, I think to hire someone is always going to feel more comfortable if they know somebody who knows the person they're considering hiring, right? Yeah. So, I mean, if you have that connection, I think that's huge. And I think to your point, Kraig, if you do those little bits of storytelling in a resume, what that shows the person on the other end is that you know how to communicate. So if you're applying for a sales job, you have to be a good communicator, and you just showed that you could do that in your resume. If you're going into marketing or branding, you have to be a communicator, and you just showed that. Even if you're going into research or something like that, you've got to be able to communicate what you're learning and what you're studying and what your results are. So I feel like that storytelling piece that you talked about, Kraig, is a huge aha, because that really says a lot more about what you are able to do as an applicant, and you may not even be realizing what subliminally that's saying about you as a candidate.
Again, I believe you're trying to put yourself in position. I'm going to use the Mike Mooney racing analogy. You're trying to get yourself into the front row. You're trying to get yourself in there off of pit road.
You want the pole position.
There you go. That's what you want. You're trying to put yourself in that situation. So however you're best able to do that to showcase yourself is what we want to do. So to Macy, to Garrett, to other people there that send in questions, thank you. We take a couple each week from the list, and hopefully that will help guide us. Now, here's today's topic, and off we go. This one is finding meaning in your job. And this one's interesting because it tugs at the heart, and it really focuses on the mindset that you carry with you each and every week or each and every day in going to your job. Now, we could have actually made this topic finding meaning in your work, because I think job is almost a suggestion that you just have this task to do. And I think we should always be working towards something, not jobbing towards something. But to find meaning in your job and personal passion within and the ability to influence others, I think is really important. Influencing other people. So that's the topic this week. Yeah. And we're going to get started in talking about this and ways that you can send in questions that we'll take here. Number one, you can do it live to the Kann Advisory Facebook page, or if you're following on Jill's page, which 2.7 million people are doing right now, or Mike and I, you can send them there, but you can also email them directly to Kann Advisory, info@kannadvisory.com. And before I let Jill go first with her story about the show, I just want to say this. I think it's important to take a look at this that I've put up here, which is if you work to do something impactful, that's what you can become. All right. If you simply work, you'll settle for just being a worker. And so I think you have to find some of your own purpose in what you do, of what do I want to accomplish? Who do I want to influence? Where is my passion point? Okay, this might be my title, but it doesn't mean it's my role. It doesn't mean it's my opportunity for impact. And I have to figure out my ways that I can do that. So you don't want to just settle for being a worker. I always talk about, you want to make a paycheck or do you want to make a difference? Because there's two ways you can go. And there are a lot of people I know that really don't care about making a difference. They talk about the money they make and did they get their check every 2 weeks? And I've been there for X amount of time. Okay, when you go to the next job that you have, what are you going to tell them about what you accomplished there? And if you can't tell them, like if you can't write that little story I was telling about, then I don't really know what you did while you were there, because it can't just be about 3 lines of I did this, I was responsible for this, this, and this. That doesn't tell me anything. We all have responsibilities. All right, Jill, you take it first.
All right. So this is, the story of how the show Your Home with Jill was born. And when I started at QVC, all hosts that start there sort of start in the overnight hours, at least when they were live 24/7. And so I would be on the air at 3:00 in the morning. And my shift was 3 hours of the linen closet. So that's 3 hours, Mike and Kraig, of sheets and quilts.
That's a lot of sheets.
I want you to know that I worked at Marshall Fields back in the day in the linen department when I was a college student. I know a lot about thread count.
Oh, okay.
Where were you? Because I could have used that help in my early days. So, in those days too at QVC, there weren't guests on helping the hosts with information. We did it all. So think about this, America, 3 hours talking about sheets by yourself in the middle of the night. So I had to find ways to make it interesting for me so that it would be interesting for the customer. And so I would start, it was like, not like here's another sheet set and this one comes in blue, but I would start putting the picture together. Like, oh, think of how pretty this blue sheet would be if you had a white wicker bed, and then we could do such and such lamps with it and maybe put a couple So I started painting this picture because I really always loved home decor. Well, as I got more experience at QVC and was bumped out of the overnight hours into more of the mainstream day of programming, this is about the time that HGTV was hitting. So I was watching these shows that were doing home makeovers, kind of talking about the things I was talking about in my linen closet hours. But I thought, we have the products to be able to let people buy those things. So why don't we do a show that allows people to get tips on how to make things over, put these rooms together for them, and they can buy everything because it's all product. So I proposed this to one of the managers at QVC. I laid it all out. I'm like, I really think this could work. It'd be Your Home with Jill. I don't need any guests for the show. We'll redo rooms. We'll give them ideas. We'll have a cookie recipe each week. Like, I was all about it. And I presented it, and crickets. Heard nothing back. So, I kept doing my own thing. So I followed up and resent the email a year later. and said, I'm still really thinking this idea could work because now HGTV is picking up steam and people are watching these shows and they want the stuff that people are making over with. And so I presented it a second time and nothing. I got nothing back. But I believed in it. Like, I just knew I could connect, and I knew that I could create this home show for QVC. Keep in mind, at the time, there were maybe 1 or 2 shows that even had a host name on it. There were no at home with shows at all. But I had all these concepts that I just knew could be born from this show. So I ended up going over my boss's head to the then executive VP. And I said, I've got to share this with you. He was in charge of programming, because I believe in this. And I think we could really make it work. So he looked at it. He's like, I think you're onto something here. Let's give it a try. Well, then I got assigned a producer who didn't believe in it. So I'm here trying to put all this stuff together, like loving it, believing in it with all my heart. I knew I could do it. I could see it. I was putting the shows together, and they wanted me to test it in front of a test audience first, just to see if this concept could resonate, because it was so outside of the box of what QVC was doing at the time. They were used to, like, here is this product, you read the information, you give the item number, you give the price. It was all stats. It wasn't about, let's really make this lifestyle friendly. Let's let the host walk around the set and decorate while she's talking. And so, I think in a lot of ways, I was innovating something that really transformed the network, which I'll talk about in a second. So we had to do it in front of a test audience. Luckily, they loved it. And finally, in August of 2000, Your Home with Jill was born. And it was a huge success. And out of that 1 year, for that first year for the holidays, I said, how about if I do a gift list? Like, let's do Jill's gift picks. Well, now if you watch QVC during the holiday season, all you see are gift pick shows with every single host. Now, when you watch QVC, there's At Home with So-and-so, Down Home with So-and-so. So like, what we pioneered with that show really changed a lot of ways, the way that people shopped on QVC and the way they shopped for home decor. But it took me over 2 years of presenting it, of retooling it, of talking to the buyers, of talking to the planners. And it was all born from, I need something to keep myself going during the 3 a.m. linen closet show. But it ended up being like this really successful show. A lot of people are watching today because they loved that show. I still get people saying, I miss it so much. I love it. But it's really, like, talk about passion. Yeah. Did that show for 19 years. And when I left QVC, my biggest goal was, I want to continue that feeling of loving being at home and all things home and what I do next, because I discovered that in the room of my job, when I looked out the window, the passion was the decor, was the home, was the cooking. Yeah. And so, it started with a small thing, like, how can I take this thing that's a little mundane and make it interesting? And that just catapulted all of this creative energy and excitement into, like, I think it's fair to say, I don't have anything to back this up, but one of QVC's most popular programs in its history. People loved it.
Well, I think the important thing is that when you left there and moved on to your next, that people remember you from something, and you remember something. It gave you more than just the 8 hours of what you're doing in your shift, so to speak. It gave you a purpose, and it gave you something that was authentic to you that you could do. Mike, I'm gonna let you go here, and then I'll share something at the end, and we'll keep this conversation going.
Yeah, and that's an amazing story, Jill. And where it was taking me, and where Kraig's comment earlier about where people are starting, and that's kind of where I want to take this position from of where you start. And Kraig, you may remember this quote from the famed movie Caddyshack.
I've seen it a couple hundred times.
Right. From one Judge Smales, who looked over at young Danny, the caddy, and said, well, the world needs ditch diggers too. And, the point what got me thinking about that is sometimes it's where we start, right? And where you start doesn't necessarily mean it's where you're going to end up. So when I got my start in motorsports and public relations at the agency that, by the way, I sent the resume to, it seemed to work. But I started there in their warehouse, literally, making sure that the press kit covers were stacked properly, and all the tchotchkes for the racing programs, the T-shirts and the hats and all those things were stacked appropriately for the PR reps, for the people that I wanted to be. And I remember one day this older gentleman came back into the warehouse, and he's looking around, and he says, "You got a pretty good warehouse you're running here. Do you like it?" I'm like, "Well, it's all right. It's a start." And he said, "Well, is this what you want to do?" And I said, "Well, no, it's not." I said, "Oh, eventually I want to be inside in the office, pitching the stories, writing the stories, but this is where I am." And he said, "So let me give you a bit of advice." And he says, "I want you to remember that it's not where you start, it's where you end up. And that if you take the time right here and now, because typically when we're looking at our careers, it's like one hand on this rung of the ladder and the next hand is up here, but our focus always seems to be in between and it's split." But his point was, if you would work with excellence and be very intentional in your work, the opportunities are going to come much faster. They will accelerate, and you're going to find things along the way that are going to open your eyes to where you want to go. And I said, "Okay, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that." And I was all of probably 23 years old at the time. And a little bit later on, the owner of the agency, he came back to check in on me. And I said, "Hey, who was that older gentleman who came in a little earlier?" And he said, "Oh, is it Paul?" I said, "Yeah, Paul." And he said, we played the story to him and what he had told me about being focused and not where you start, but where you end up. And the owner chuckled and he said, "Well, do you know why that story matters? Do you know who Paul is?" And I said, "No, I have no idea." He said, "Well, we're about to announce a new sponsor that we're going to be taking on in motorsports, and it happens to be Sears, okay? And Paul is the chairman and CEO of Sears Roebuck. And it just so happens that Paul started his career with Sears on the docks in Chicago, unloading the ships with merchandise and product and inventory, and then worked his way all the way up." So, that to me, as I was looking at my career, within 7 years of being with his agency, I was then running the public relations department, working with brands like Mercedes-Benz, at the time Motorola, other large brands. But it was because that sparked a vision for myself while I was in the ditch, digging and doing the work every day. But it got me thinking about a vision for me. And I think that's an important part, is we're thinking about meaning and what meaning is and finding purpose, is that we're not going to wake up one morning, it's going to be there. It's in doing the work. It's in being focused that suddenly you experience something, you think of something, you meet somebody that changes your perspective, that allows you to start looking at what you're doing differently. That digging this ditch has meaning for right now, but it's not going to define where I'm going, as long as I have the courage to start working toward it, self-actualizing, believe it and act. So
great.
I'd add that.
That's good. Now I know where you came up with the keep digging line. It has to be. Okay. So
That's it.
here, while I'm talking here and sharing a couple of things, I want you guys to think about, okay, so here's the topic, right? Finding meaning. I want you to now in your head think of what we can share with our audience of how they will be able to do that. Like, what step should they take to find that meaning? Where's their action step? Now, here's what I'll tell you. So I spent 17 and a half years at Golf Channel, more than 25 in television, very much like Jill. For those that don't know this, by the way, Jill and I went to college together. We were in the same journalism class at the University of Missouri, and we co-hosted the noon news at the NPR radio station. Anyway, I digress. Here's the thing. When I was at the Golf Channel, and I was there from day one. So all the shows were new. And everybody was trying to find their way, and everybody was trying to be authentic and try to add their different personality or touch, if you will, to a various show. As the network moved along, you got different opportunities, and we all get that sometimes within our career. And there was a gentleman there that hosted this show called Golf Talk Live and Academy Live. He ultimately left, and I was able to take over some of those shows and have those opportunities. That was a stretch opportunity for me. By that, I mean, it wasn't my normal, but I was excited about it. I didn't want to do it the way it had been done because I wanted to add my own little touch to it. It's very similar to what Jill was talking about, where she didn't want to just do a show. She wanted to add something that became her own, that people could recognize. That's Jill. Bauer, right? I get it. So you want to find a way to make something special and your own. And with each and every show that I did, whether it was, hosting the studio show or being out live at a remote, when we would take the show on the road, kind of the college game day of golf to major championships and Ryder Cups. I always tried to be me, but I always tried to find a way to add something to the menu, something that I could bring that was a little bit different. All right, let me bring this. So now that I do radio, do I have this thing that I can do at the end that people go, yep, end of the show's coming, Kraig's going to do his thing, and it's his little thing that he does every time. I think you have to find that. When I was at the LPGA as the chief communications officer, without going too far into the details, every year would sit with the commissioner of the tour, and we would talk about, hey, these are opportunities for growth this year for you. What do you want to do? What impact are you going to make? I need 4 things that you're going to do this year that you might not have done last year. Well, it was actually a very difficult challenge. It was not the easiest thing in the world to be able to do that, because you had to stretch your mind and go, all right, how am I going to make an impact this year? Because I might not have done that last year. So I'll give you one example. I didn't want to just be the next guy in line as the chief communications officer. I had to think of why I might have been hired and what I might be able to add that somebody else, either prior to me or after me, couldn't do. And that would be, I brought the media angle, having been on the air, and the media coaching that I could do for executives, and the presentation skills training that I could provide for executives or athletes, et cetera, to stand in front of a room of people and deliver, whether it be to a sponsor, a stakeholder, or whatever. How do you present? How do you grab their attention? How do you deliver a message? How do you leave them with something? And so one of the things that I did was a whole series on media coaching for all the athletes, and a whole series called The Power of Presentation for all the executives. Now, that was something that I could own, but it also gave me my purpose. It gave me my meaning for that year. I had 3 other things that I did as well, but I'm just using this one as the best example. That was my strength. That was something that I could do, that I was excited to take part in, very similar to what Jill said. It's not where you start, to go to Mike's point of, hey, I got hired to be this. It's where you finish. What impact will you leave? Find something. So my action step, and now I'll let you guys go. My action step to everybody out there is, think about yourself. Think about the strengths that you bring, why they might have hired you, what will challenge you in the job to give you a purpose to get up every morning, and something that you can share with others that is your strength to allow you not necessarily just to mentor, but to share, to contribute, to make an impact on everybody else that will leave them saying, wow, this person wasn't here just grabbing a paycheck. They were here to actually make a difference. So that's where I would go with that. Mike, you want to take it from here?
No, I'd be happy to. I mean, I think I would piggyback on this idea of a vision for yourself. I think we have to start there. I think there are often times that when we get into the workforce, we get into a job, and then before you know it, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years have gone down the line. And then we look up from our desk or a cubicle, or as unfortunately we're seeing in today's world, perhaps across the desk from the HR department, and it's a very difficult, challenging time. And I think for wherever you are in your stage of career or life, it's important that you have a vision. I mean, I often say to people, look, we get one race. Going back to my background in motorsports, you get one race. Now, what you do with the laps, that's up to you. How you approach each lap and what you do and your strategy and your vision, that's up to you. So I would encourage people to take this time to reflect, on not only the vision of what you see and what you want to be, but where does that align with your values? The things that are important to you, that ground you. So I would say, from an action standpoint, today more than ever, take the time to really create the vision for you. And we all have one. We all have one. So oftentimes we just have to get out of our own way. I'm sure Jill and Kraig, and for myself, fear truly gets in the way of us really embracing and owning that vision. Truly does. So really, working on ways of the mindset to get past the fear, to actually have the courage to reach out toward that vision is powerful. And that's the first step. So I'd encourage people to take that now.
Okay. Jill?
And Mike, just talking about fear, like I am open to share this with everybody here that, for years I have wanted to write a cookbook, and I can see it and I know what I want to do with it. But you know what I think why I haven't done it is because I'm afraid if I do it, what if nobody buys it? Like what if,
Exactly right.
And then, and that's when you have to look at it and say, so is that why you're doing it? Or are you just doing it for you because it's something that you want to accomplish? So there's my vulnerable moment for all of you.
You're talking
but it's
to two
real.
guys there. Mike Mooney has already written the book, and he actually helped inspire me. I think I told him after he wrote his Reputation Shift book that I was in the process of starting it. It's now with the publisher and supposed to come out this fall. And I will tell you, Jill, that in the opening pages, I talk about exactly that, because you do have why would anybody want to read what I have to say? But you have to get over that, and you have to believe that what you're doing. And I've given you a couple of thoughts about making your cookbook more than just a cookbook, which is what I think would really help people who've already connected with you connect even further beyond, some of the most amazing brownies with peanut butter and chocolate chips in them.
You guys didn't know when you signed up to work with me, you're probably going to gain 10 pounds. I'm going to be baking for you.
I always said in television, the camera adds 10 pounds. And I said, then make sure only one of them's on me. Okay. So anyway, that's my thought. Go ahead, Mike. I know you wanted to share my book or something.
Well, yeah, I think you're spot on. A couple of thoughts with that, Jill, is that, I've had people say, well, hey, you put the book out, and also like your content. They say, is that the hardest part? What's the hardest part about creating content, whether it's a video or a post or a book? And they say, it must be the writing. It must be doing all the work. I said, no. The hardest part is hitting post or hitting send, or because when it's here and it's mine, no one can judge it. Yeah, I think that's the other part of fear, when we're looking at it through our eyes of being judged, and that then equates to our value. But I'd also say that when you're willing to put the work in, so when I wrote my book, a little side story on that, my wife was giving me a hard time saying, well, where's this book? You keep talking about this book. Where's the book? And I'm like, oh, baby, I'm working on it. But I'm traveling. I'm at 28 races a year. I'm at weekends. I have no time. And she goes, okay, great. So there's no book. Can we move on? Can we stop talking about the book? And that kind of triggered me. She knew what she was doing. But the point in that is I started getting up at 4:45 in the morning, and I would write from 5 a.m. to 6:15 a.m. because that's when we get our kids up at 6:15. But I did that for 7 days a week for 7 months. And there's no magic in doing it. It's getting up, showing up, doing the work, putting it in. But in doing that, I will encourage people, and I believe this, that it builds up a muscle and resolve that there is value in what you're bringing, that there is something here that you put the time and the effort in to create that will deliver value. Now, I don't know what that value will be to somebody. I don't know, to your point, Jill, if they'll sell 1 or 1 million. I have no idea, but I want to create impact. I want to deliver value. And this was just one of the tools that was planted in me that I had a responsibility to. So, I would just encourage, like, all of us, we've got that thing in us, but the problem is when we start thinking about it, try this example, list out the reasons and how you'd get it done. And I guarantee by the 5th point that you make, you're already into the negative. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of that. Right. We automatically drift to that place of fear and lack. So I would encourage you to get that cookbook out, girl. We need it.
Okay. So good pep talk this morning.
Here's what I'll say to put a wrap on in this conversation. 2 things. First and foremost, to everybody out there, Jill's going to write her book now, and she's going to get up at 4:45 in the morning, and she's going to do it. Mike's already done that. He inspired me. My book, I thought, was going to be 40,000 words, Jill. It ended up being over 55,000 words, which I don't know how many pages that equates to, but I did map the whole thing out before I ever tackled it. And I will tell you that it's inspiring. There's things I would still change. Like I still wake up and go, man, I wish I would have written about that. Or I wish I would have, well, then I'll write another book or something. But I would tell everybody out there, you don't have to write a book, but at the beginning of every day, create a story for yourself, create a chapter for yourself within your job. Find meaning within doing something that could be the chapter in a book. I hope that makes sense. If you were going to write 10 pages about I accomplished this and I mentored these people, I gave this to my organization, you control that destiny. So I tell people all the time in my workshops, the one-on-ones, and I cannot wait, we'll get to this in a second, to do stuff with you guys here soon. And I'm excited about that. But we all have business cards. People get really excited about a business card. I've saved mine from all my jobs and all that, and reporter, then anchor, and all these different things. You know what? That doesn't mean anything. At the beginning of the day, everybody's business card should say one word. It should say entrepreneur. Now, you two and I, we are entrepreneurs at this point, but everybody should wake up with that mindset. We are all entrepreneurs. Whether we work for somebody else or we work for ourselves, each and every day we wake up, we need an entrepreneurial spirit and an entrepreneurial attitude. And you can do anything that day, but it takes having that mindset to do it. So, entrepreneurs have no fear. They're able to take no for an answer, but they believe very passionately about what they're doing and they push it forward. And they're able to not worry about what everybody else says. They want to find a way that their idea can get pushed across the finish line. They're change agents. They're empowerers of other people because they believe so much in what they're doing, a la the story that Jill told about creating a show. And I know what Mike has done with his book. And he and I have had many conversations, folks, about, what we do when we're in front of an audience and the impact we try to make. We are entrepreneurial people, all of us, of our own ideas, and everybody's got that something from within. So find the meaning that suits you, find your own purpose, and be an entrepreneur of that. And to me, that's how you're going to find the greatest meaning and purpose within your job. And that's the way I would leave this conversation.
And that's all I have to say about that.
That's great.
I really believe passionately in that, and it's taken me a long time to figure that out. I worked for other people, but man, when you take ownership of being that person within the organization as well, like I'm going to take charge of this. I want to make a difference with this, my idea. I want to get it across the finish line. It's important, and I think people should try to do that. So that's our topic for this week, finding meaning in your job. Guys, let me and gals, let me give you what we're talking about next week. And Jill, I don't know what your schedule is, but you're welcome to join Mike and I each and every time. And unless
Thank
you're
you.
please. Time, if she's writing the cookbook from 9 to 10, she's not going to be able to join us. We're going to put you on this, right, Mike? We're going to make her do this.
It's going to be like a weekly check-in. It's going to be the accountability show here.
That's good. Sometimes I need that kick.
Start mapping it out. Our topic next time is ageism in the workplace, and it exists. And I think we all know that. And without putting a birth certificate to each and every one of us on this program, we will let you know that we probably lived it, seen it, etc. So what we're going to talk about is overcoming any bias that exists, adapting within an organization where you might see it. Look, we all feel like, okay, I'm X age and my time might be winding down, or they're hiring somebody younger, newer, faster, quicker, etc. How do you still succeed? How do you thrive? How do you adapt? I think that's going to be a great conversation, Mike.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's something more important than a great conversation. I think it's very relevant to today. There are so many people that are either experiencing it or in positions where they're in transition and they're pivoting with a fear of, will my age take me out of the race or not allow me to be a contender? So I think this is going to be a rich conversation for sure.
Jill?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, really. Well, and listen, in the realm of the world where you and I worked for a long time, Kraig, and frankly, I think as a man, you could probably have had longevity with age a little bit easier than a woman could. I mean, I really believe that. I think that, when it comes to TV and media, it's all about young and pretty and fresh and new. So, trying to stay relevant. As I was hired at QVC in my mid-20s, the youngest host they'd ever hired at the time, and still stay relevant in my 30s, in my 40s, up to when I was 50. Like it's exhausting sometimes, but what a great conversation to have.
Give away all your good stuff. Save it for next week.
Okay. Sorry.
No, but it's actually, I mean, it's a great point though, Jill, because the duality of that and the complexity and the complete crap, quite honestly, is that what you just said for women, what you said, it's fresh, it's new, it's always it's about the looks. Yet for the men, my opinion, is that, some gray hairs on the head builds trust, and that actually can be to your benefit versus being the young kid. That was more of a segue over to you, Kraig. So
Exactly.
That's a great conversation. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. I told everybody that we're all together and we're working on some cool things. And the Elevate series has workshops, and it's also got webinars, or we could call them virtual workshops. Talk about communication, presentation, branding, and bonding. And the three of us have joined forces to take what's already been done in my Elevate workshop and add some new pieces to the puzzle, full and half day workshops and 90-minute to 2-hour webinars for organizations and corporations. I want to teach people how to become the green shoe, and I will talk about that. You'd have to sign up for one of these to really get the whole story on that. But the green shoe it's an award, it's coveted, and I will explain how you can win that when we all get together to do it. So what are we doing together specifically? I mean, I've given you as an audience the full and half day workshops and the 90-minute webinars, but we're going to talk about various topics, and these are some of them: owning the power of presentation, which is something that I talked about earlier, winning the room and the web. Jill and I, our backgrounds are about presentation, let's face it, and promoting brands and delivering on that, communicating with customers and clients, something that we all three have done, and building an influencer group, which is right up Mike's alley, along with driving. Notice I used the term driving. I could have used accelerating, like for him being in motorsports, but brand presence, which is really something that is very, very much in Mike's wheelhouse. And so to all the organizations out there that are looking for an amazing experience, I'm not talking about just a webinar or workshop. We're talking about an experience, an engaging, fast-moving, entertaining, informational-based experience for your employees. We're bringing it to you, and we're excited to be able to do that. So any thoughts you guys have you want to share on this before I move along?
Ladies first.
No, I mean, I'm super excited to, get started with the webinars and the workshops. We're excited to take all of our years of experience doing different things and bring it all together so that whether you are looking for something in a small business or a larger corporate setting, we're there to help support you. So we're ready to get started with all of you. And we look forward to, starting conversations to see where we can take things.
Yeah. And I think, Mike, it would be fair to say that at the first in-person, and we don't know where COVID's going to take us, but in the first in-person workshop that the three of us do, I fully expect that Jill would bring, brownies or something.
Of course. Did you even have to ask that? That's just a given, right?
You guys can be the taste testers for the recipes in the book. How's that?
I'm in. Sign me up.
Yeah, you can set up the decor for the room and all of that good stuff. So
great.
With that, I want to give people an opportunity to learn a little bit more. Mike, what's going on with you, and where can people find out more about you aside from what you do with Kann Advisory?
Yeah, so a lot of really cool things going on right now. Just launched a program called the Shift Experience that's all about driving relationships and accelerating trust. So I'll have more on that coming out soon on my website, MikeMooney.com, or please, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to connect and interact with people there, and you can find me on social at Mike_Mooney. So we'd love to connect and continue meeting people and just doing the work we're doing, Kraig.
CannAdvisory.com is the website to learn more about workshops, keynotes, seminars, and consulting opportunities, and what we share, also how to be and own the green shoe. Jill, have you got anything you can share about what you have coming up? Anything going on?
I'm going to be on the Today Show next Tuesday, the 21st. So I'm always on with Hoda and Jenna. So if you are around and want to check me out there, you'll find me on the Today Show. And then I've got some other cool things. This has been a really busy week for me. So some fun collaborations coming up with some brands. And, that's kind of a stay tuned, but you'll start to see some things. And believe it or not, guys, I'm actually working on what my content is going to be for Christmas. So I'm working on right now on like holiday decor recipes and what kind of content we can deliver. So that'll be coming up. But the big thing is the Today Show, and I have 3 more segments in the works with them. So probably throughout the rest of the summer into the fall, you'll be seeing me there pretty regularly.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I thought I was a planner, looking at like the next 30 days. Jill's taking it to like the next level here. Christmas. That's fantastic. That's inspiring. That's inspiring.
You have to work ahead, right? So
you do.
You shoot it and create it in September so that it's ready to go in November and December. Yep. But some cool things coming. Really excited, and of course, always excited to work with you guys. You're really great, and this I thought was a really inspiring sort of session this morning. So thanks again for including me.
Well, Mike, as you pointed out, so very well done, by the way, that it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And Jill proving that even in a COVID situation, it's not about January. It's apparently about Christmas and December. And she's already way ahead of where the year will finish. So good for you.
I love it. I love it.
I will be, I'll share next week, but season 2 of my podcast, Tracks to Success, is actually going to be debuting in August, and I'll have more on that next week. I'm really excited about it. I thought season 1 was great. Season 2 is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that and the interviews that are going to be coming people's way that are going to be really, really inspiring. So with that, I will say to everybody, thank you again so much for being a part of this on Thursdays. We call it Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak, and it's brand new. Inspiring career growth conversation each and every week. Little coffee, little conversation, nothing too over the top. But please send us your questions because that's a big part of it. We want this to be interactive. We want people to be able to share. And I don't think we have all the answers, but we certainly have all the conversation topics that I think can be relevant. And if you've got one that you'd like us to debate, please, by all means, send an email, info@kannadvisory.com, info@kannadvisory.com, or just send it directly to any of us on our Facebook pages, and we will get it from there. You all have a wonderful day, right? Jill, Mike?
Yep, you guys too.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. Take care, and thanks for being a part of this week's Elevating You.